Okay, we are live. Welcome to Executive Talk. I am so excited to have you. Sid, how are you today? What's going on?
I am phenomenal, and I'm getting better as I'm joining you and your audience.
I have to say, I'm really excited to have you here on the show. Oh, I've heard so much about you. Your reputation precedes you. Your list of accomplishments really is something spectacular, and I want to tackle all of it. So you better buckle up because we're gonna have a lot of chatting going on right now.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Okay, cool. So welcome to the Executive Talk podcast. I am with Sid Mohasseb, right? They branded you the Entrepreneur Philosopher. I would really love to hear what is that? How does that, what does that mean?
That's a good question. I guess maybe I philosophized about entrepreneurship too much. But seriously, I believe that it is our own personal entrepreneurship philosophy that each one of us have that makes us unique, makes us authentic. And it is a combination of our beliefs, a combination of how we face building ecosystems, how we face building a business, how we face risk, how we face execution, all of those things that makes us who we are based on our DNA, based on who we want to be, our aspirations. And if you look at all entrepreneurs, from Warren Buffett to Elon Musk to you name it, they're just not the same. They're all different.
No, of course they are. And they have to be different, entrepreneurship is not a cookie cutter process. It definitely is not,
And it starts in your mind. And it starts
100%, 100% it does. We talk a lot about, on our side, about the idea of personal entrepreneurship and personal leadership, where you kind of break things down. If you break entrepreneurship down and leadership down into a few components, there's, obviously what your role and positioning that you have for your community, all right, however you define your community. It could be your family, it could be your job, it could be where you live, it could be, your industry, it could be whatever you create for yourself, right? And that's a special niche, right? Not everyone could be a leader or entrepreneur in that level of capacity, right? And that's a trained skill. That's, something which is kind of natural, but you work towards and you get it done, right? That level of personal entrepreneurship and personal leadership, I think, is something which is completely understated and really needs to be spoken about more, because people, right, as unique as they are and as amazing as they are, all have that capacity in one way or another to really step into what I call personal leadership. And it doesn't necessarily mean, being in charge of people or things, but it means having a certain sense of responsibility towards yourself and your own actions and process in your life. And I think that's such.
So Aaron, you're gonna love my the whole idea of my new book. At the sound of sounding promotional here, but it's what my thesis is, and this is maybe partly why they call me the philosopher. Is I am in opposition to people who say entrepreneurship. We have the entrepreneurs and we have the rest of the world. My position is we're all entrepreneurs. It's in our genes. Entrepreneurship is about exchange of something you have, something you build, something you create, some resource that you have, and turning it into something better. Now, this could be a paycheck that you get from your work, and then you turn that into a wonderful meal for your kids. It could be it could be anything that you have, and you turn it into something better. So in that definition, you always have a risk. You never know it's 100%. So let me kind of give you an example.
Please.
I think every student is an entrepreneur. Here's my argument. They lose a lot of sleep. They work hard. They pay significant money or borrow from their parents or go under debt in order to go to universities. And why do they do that? In order to get something, some degree, some position, so their life would be better. So they're trying to exchange the investment of time, effort, sleepless nights, all of that stuff, in order to exchange it with something better, a better life. And there's a risk. It may not happen.
I love that. I actually never thought of entrepreneurship like that in that capacity. You're right. I guess under those terms, even students could be, are entrepreneurs, and under that model, that makes a lot of sense. Correct. I really like Correct. that.
So some of us, though, are what I call in denial.
Okay.
We don't want to accept that we're an entrepreneur, because we look at Jeff Bezos. Oh, that guy is an entrepreneur. If he's an entrepreneur, I'm not an entrepreneur. Henry Ford is an entrepreneur. I'm not an entrepreneur. So right. Those guys are saying, there's a way to awaken that, stimulate your. Do this every day. Every time you're going to make a decision, stop for 10 seconds and see that you're making a choice between A and B. Do I go home right. from this route or that route? Do I make this food or that food? Do I go to work, stay another half an hour, or go home and spend it with my kids? Right. At every given time, you're making lots of choices, and all of those choices have a probability of not being the best thing you do. You leave early from your work, and your boss makes you unhappy. You go from this route to work, and there may be a traffic and accident come down the road. There is always a risk attached to it. So if you stimulate your mind first, you would see that you are acting entrepreneurial in everything day-to-day life that you're doing.
That's so interesting.
What are you exchanging for what? What are you exchanging for what?
No, look, that's a great way to look at it. I mean, it puts a lot of pressure on you. It's like it turns your entire life into a giant balance. Of like, well, is it this or is it that? And like if you make the wrong move, oh my gosh, like now.
No, that's the thing. The oh my gosh part comes when you think, oh, I'm going to fail, and that's the second group. That's the aspirational group. They realize that they have some entrepreneurial thing. They want to do a hustle, if you would. They call it a side hustle, a weekend thing. And but they're afraid. Right. So the thing is that they're afraid that they make a mistake. I would say there are no mistakes unless you don't learn from it.
That's true. No, I'm a big believer of that. A really big believer of that. And also in entrepreneurship, in business, in life, in general, if you don't take time to reflect upon your successes and your failures, then and you don't have the opportunity to learn from them in either which way, you're never going to achieve the goals that you want, right? You're never going to achieve that high level of success because you're never giving yourself that opportunity to reflect, learn, and grow. Otherwise, you're just floating around forever, and then where did that take you? That doesn't really take you very far.
And Aaron, that partly comes from this addiction to sameness, to the comfort zone that we have. We don't want to break because we feel, and this is what happens in crisis. In crisis, you see that the existing place, what you had, is no longer a comfortable place. So what you do is you balance out the risk and outcome, and you say, okay, now the risk is worth doing. And that's why you see a lot of innovation in a lot of places, in business, in life, and things that we do, that say, okay, because the risk is now justified. But the risk is always a matter of navigating. I use a lot of analogies in my things. Like I say, you have to be a pilot. An entrepreneur got to look at life as a pilot. Why? We have a commercial pilot. A commercial pilot flies all over the place. There's always a risk of crash.
Okay.
Always a risk. But they have a checklist. Do this and this and this and this and this, and then it's okay. The weather is this, the engine is this. Check. They get on it, as a pilot, and that's like a corporate person. It's a corporate structure, right? But if you think of a fighter pilot, they still have the same set of risks of flying, but they're also in a war. The competition, the fuel is not enough. That's your capital. You don't have the right resources. You don't have the right environment. The people are shooting at you all the time because that's the competition. So it's the risk of flying is still there as a pilot, but you have added things to do. Now let me ask you this: if you are a passenger on a commercial flight, are you taking risks or more risk than the pilot?
well, I'm kind of putting my trust into the pilot that he knows what he's doing.
That's exactly right. And that's what we do when we work for a corporation. It's not that we're not an entrepreneur. We just believe that
Right.
that guy knows how to run it better than I do. And this is
Right.
exactly how we should run our businesses. Sometimes we
Right.
have an employee, a person who knows better how to do it. That's why we hire a legal attorney,
That's right. That's right.
marketing guy to do certain things, because we say, it's not that I am not a leader. It's just this is the point that I like somebody else to be the pilot because they know how to do it.
Oh, for sure. And that's how you build effective teams, is being able to appreciate and accept the strengths of other people and allow that to work together, right? The biggest mistake that I see businesses make and bosses make, and I purposely am using the word boss here, not leader, is that they create their own bottleneck for success, right? They become the person that everything has to go through in order to be able for things to happen. And what ends up happening is that you're really thwarting your own success because you are not allowing the opportunity for growth. You are limiting your growth to what you have capacity for and ability for. And meanwhile, then why are you even hiring people? Right. So when you're building a team, a key to successful team is being able to put your ego aside for a moment and be able to say, look, you have strength in this, and you have strength in this, and you have strength in that, and together we're going to complement each other's strengths and support each other and believe in each other that you're going to be successful, and let's go and achieve. And the leader. Now I purposely am using the word leader. The leader who is able to do that with their team are the people that are really going to fly towards that next level of success and growth. And you mentioned before, this whole idea of like, well, if I look at a Jeff Bezos, how am I ever going to be like that? You're absolutely correct. In other words, if your whole frame of mind is, well, how am I ever going to be like that? You're never going to do anything. What you don't realize are the steps that person took also, right? Everything that they achieved along the way, the risks and the challenges, that's all one side of it, right? But the difference, though, the other side of it that I see a lot is that when you're always looking on someone else and say, well, how come I'm not like you? What ends up happening is you forgo your own strengths, and you forgo what makes you amazing at what you can do, and then you're throwing away your best asset.
That's exactly right. So that's why again, you set me up to be a promotional guy. I don't mean to be, but the name of my book that's coming out, You Are Not Them. You are not them. You have to find the authentic entrepreneur's way. That's your way. Now, let me go back to the leadership thing that you were mentioning a minute before. I did an article a couple months ago, for Forbes around this idea that this empowerment thing is wrong. This is, people say you have to empower people. The core assumption there is that the boss has the power and is going to give you, the employee, the power to do something. The power of creativity, innovation, execution is in the hands of the people. People are the creative people. They have the innovation ability. I don't. So I can't give them the power. I can facilitate the power.
Correct.
I can remove barriers for them to execute and apply their innovation and apply their creativity, but I don't have the power to give them. And this is a fundamental way of how you look at things from I am the boss, so I have the power.
So that's so interesting. And I would even go as far to say that if you find yourself working in an environment where you feel like you are stifled by that exact mentality, that is not a place you want to be working.
That's right. That is exactly where you see organizations that have cultures that are thriving and they are gelling together is a few things. One is that personal entrepreneurship philosophy, that the uniqueness of that entrepreneur who's leading the organization has infected others. Other people are sharing that philosophy. They see that and they say, yeah, I agree with that way of thinking. I agree with that way of being. And therefore they gel and it becomes a culture. A culture
Right.
is not, here's the thing, a culture is not built because you have a Friday afternoon barbecue. That's not how a
No,
culture is built. A
no,
culture is
absolutely not.
built by doing and by walking the talk. And I always tell people, culture is built when you fire, not when you hire.
I
When
believe
you
that.
fire somebody,
I
you're
believe in that.
you're saying you are not behaving according to this set of things. You tell others that this behavior is not acceptable.
Right.
Whatever that behavior is, whatever the culture is, you are unique. You have your own way of
Right.
doing it, and
Right.
uh, and that makes a culture. It's not just that it happens because you read a few books.
But if I did read a few more books, maybe then that'd be, fantastic.
If it's my book, yes. No, but seriously, I am fundamentally against this idea of starting with how-to books. I'll
Right.
tell you what, because life is not like one of these, an IKEA or some other place where you buy something on Amazon and then you assemble it together and say, okay, this is, you follow a guide, that's how it works. Yes, it's important for you to know the basics of marketing. Yes, it's
Yeah.
important for you to know how to balance your books. Yes, it's
Yeah.
important to know. It is important to know all of that, but that doesn't make
Right.
you an entrepreneur.
No, and it also doesn't make you an expert in those fields either.
Correct. Correct. And so if you're saying that, hey, I'm an entrepreneur because I've read all these how-to books, that's not it. You have to, those are the wheels under the car,
Right.
but they are not the car. You are the engine. You
Right.
need to have wheels. You need to know how the mechanics work, but you
Right.
have to have the right mindset to approach it. The
Correct.
right
We
mindset
have.
to build an ecosystem. The right
Right.
mindset to work around execution issues. The right mindset to deal with risk. The right mindset
Right.
to build your authentic self.
Right. We have a policy that anyone who's worked with me knows is that I never ask someone to do something that I will not do by myself. Right. And so if and we build a culture around that concept of everyone chips in because people see each other doing all the grunt work, right? Because sometimes you just have to take out the garbage. That's just how it goes.
Yep.
And you build culture by setting that example of this is how we work together. And even if, and that's not just applicable at work, but it's applicable for your home life also, right? How you operate at home, right, is this, people will learn from your actions. And the more that you can have people imitate your actions, right, for the positive, right, which, you have to be careful because they'll imitate for the good and for the bad. But the more that you can, you create an environment of positive activity and positive mentality through.
Genuinely, Aaron, genuinely.
100%.
This reminded me of an example. I bought a company in Orange County about 8-9 years ago. It's a big distribution company with clients all over the globe. I had offices in China. I had offices in London and US,
Sure.
all that. And the first week that I bought this company, uh, over a weekend, it was a Saturday. I went to the warehouse. It was a big, large warehouse. I don't know, 40, 50,000 square feet. And I saw that it's kind of messy. So I picked up the broom, and there's nobody in the building. Right? I picked up the broom and I'm cleaning, and all of a sudden, I had hired a head of logistics, a head of global logistics, that was coming in to pick up something from the office. He walked in and he saw me sweeping the floor. I said, "Sid, what are you doing? What are you doing?" I said, "I'm cleaning up. This is my home." And you know that what happened? That guy took that message, which I didn't intend for. It wasn't a made up session. It was a genuine act of doing something. And what
Yeah.
happened was that message was carried through the entire organization, and I heard that message from all the people. The person who we hired 2 years later.
That's amazing. Look, that's fantastic. And it's those types of teachings that really make a difference. Look, people respond to activity. They really do. And the more that you can show them how we work, the more they're going to emulate that, and the more you're going to be able to build a culture around people who believe in the same thing. Yeah. And people who don't are not going to last long within that culture either.
Yeah. So culture is not some plants that you go outside and build and you bring in and you say, okay, this is our culture. It's you have to seed it, you have to water it, you have to take care of it, and slowly it will grow and it becomes your culture one day before you know it.
So let me say a question. In your opinion, how long does it take to build an effective culture, under the guise that that you'd be happy with? Does that happen in a week, in a month, in a year? What do you think?
It's hard to say how long it would take to build it, but I can tell how long it would take to destroy it.
Okay.
One decision.
Yeah.
One decision will destroy your culture.
Right.
Because if you say, here's how we do things, and then you don't do it yourself, if they see you doing something crooked, they see, yeah, that's acceptable. If they see you keeping track of the second cousin who's stealing something, and it's okay, then that's okay. If you see you give a bonus to somebody who doesn't deserve it, that's how you break it. If you see you treat a customer in a different way, that's how you break it. So that's how you put cracks in the culture, and then it's out of your control. The cracks get bigger and bigger without you even noticing that those decisions. So every decision matters. I'm not trying to scare people that, hey, you can't make any decision because you make a mistake. But then immediately if you make that mistake, you have to acknowledge it. You have to
100%.
say, that was a mistake. I learned something from it. And hey, Aaron, Joe, Jack, whoever you are, you see, I am correcting course because that wasn't the right thing to do.
No, 100%. Look, so you have a lot of experience when it comes to entrepreneurship, building businesses, growing businesses, and things. Tell me about your process. How do you build a successful business? And what are the steps and processes that you need to take in order to sustain a successful business?
So that's a very good question. So the first place is, I would say, in really truly separating what is relevant to people, to customers. So let's start with the idea. Essentially, every business starts with an idea, whatever that is. What is relevant to other people versus what is relevant to you. So I may like this cup. I think it's beautiful. It's red. It's wonderful. Who wouldn't like it? But it doesn't matter what I like, because we have to, as a business, unless I want to build this, I want to buy it myself, and I want to use it myself, I need somebody else. It's not somebody else that's important. So I have to be relevant to other people. That's question number one. Is what I'm building, what I'm having, relevant to others? Not because I think it's a great thing, but because they think it's a great thing. The second is there an exchange? Remember that entrepreneurship exchange idea? It applies everywhere. Is there an exchange? Are they willing to give me A in exchange of this? Remember, they're entrepreneurs too. So they want to give me $1, $100, or $1 million in exchange of something I'm giving them. Is this valued for them? Is the risk worth for them? Is it something that they would like? So it starts to me, sorry, it starts to me always at what am I offering? Is it relevant to people? And so then it is, who is doing it? Who is the team? Who is the people who are going to take this idea and drive it to some fruition? Are they passionate about the idea? Do they like it? Are they committed? At 4 o'clock in the morning when we have an issue, I tell this story as something that is absolutely, I wear it as a badge of honor. There was a company I had, it was an early stage company, and it was in the 2009, 2010 time frame where the economy was messed up, and we had at one point even asked some people to forego any payment. And to my surprise, every employee said, "Yeah, we don't want money. We're okay."
Okay.
So
Okay.
they stayed. Now, fast forward 6 months later, we're doing a little better. At 4 o'clock in the morning, we had a meeting with CNN as a client.
Okay.
And I, as the CEO, was getting on the phone at 4 o'clock. I started looking at the PowerPoint. Boy, this doesn't make sense. These numbers don't make sense. This stuff don't make any sense. So
Okay.
the meeting was at 7 o'clock California time, which was 10 o'clock East Coast. So
Okay.
I sent an email to 5 people of my team. I said, "Who is up? I need you." You would not believe, within 5 minutes, all of them said, "I'm up. What can I do?
Wow.
I'm up. What can I do?" And we were on the call, and we did it, and we fixed it, and we
I was
got
gonna say you solved the problem at least.
solved the problem. We solved the problem. So the
Yeah.
key is this: they were passionate about what they were doing. It wasn't that I was a, I was a military leader of some sort. They didn't did it for
Right.
me. They did it for themselves. They were up because they wanted to be up. Nobody put a gun to their head. Nobody.
Right.
I never asked them to be up at 4 o'clock in the morning, but they
Right.
cared, and that caring doesn't happen just by itself. So it is
Correct.
important to have the right people who have the right passion and the right chemistry together. It's
Okay. So
always around people. And
right.
the second, the last thing that I want to make sure in terms of mechanical, it's the attitude of change. That is, I used to run a Tech Coast Angels, it's the largest angel investment entity in the U.S. And I used to see a lot of business plans, a lot. And I would talk to a lot of entrepreneurs. And I have not, to this day, seen one business plan that somebody showed me that it ended up eventually being exactly what they did. It's always changed.
Right.
So this attitude that, okay, I figured that this is what
Let me question: is that a good thing? Is that a good thing that it changes, or not a good thing?
it's a good thing to change because
Okay.
the world changes.
Right.
If the world changes and I'm standing over here, then I'm not being relevant. In order for me to be relevant, I have to have the flexibility to change, to evolve.
Right.
So this idea that, I say some entrepreneurs have this, what I call founderitis. It's kind of like arthritis for founders. It's a disease, "Oh, this is what I like, this is what I do, this is the way it should be done." Well, that's wrong. Who cares about you? We care about the client. And
That's
so
right.
this ability to evolve, I think, is again a mindset that's important.
I totally hear that. As the as someone who ran one of the largest angel investors in the United States, right? You said yourself, right? You had business plans coming across your desk, at your ears. What advice would you give to someone who's looking for investment, right? What advice would you give in order for them to be able to catch your attention? And what are the things that stick out at you to say that you can tell, yes, that's going to work?
So there are a few things that you hear the names left and right. One is coachability, chemistry. I don't want to work with somebody. So here's the thing: if I'm signing up, I'm not trying to give somebody money and then let them go.
Right.
I think there's more value to me being next to them than the money.
Okay.
Okay, it's every professional angel investors. I'm not talking about somebody who's in the real estate business and does some investments on the side. As
Sure.
a professional investor, you think that it's not the money that's valuable; it's your connections, it's who you are, it's your experience, all of that. So coachability is always something that people say. Flexibility of how do we manage this is another characteristic. Now, this may sound silly, but my first advice is if you can take no money, take no money. Don't take money. You
Right.
don't want somebody to be over your head. It is
Right.
not a good thing. And the probability is really minute. I mean, if you look at like the Kaufman Foundation did a study, uh,
Mhm.
out of every 1,000 people that looks for money, even angel money, one gets it. Out of every 1,000, one gets it. Now listen to this. Out of every of they who actually get it, ever get to a finish line. Ever
Wow.
get to a finish line. So that's the 1 in a million chance.
What does that mean? They never get to the finish line. It means that they're always in process.
The company fails. At best, only 5-10% of companies actually exit with a profit.
Right.
A lot of them are like stagger, about 30-40% just fold, about another 30-40% do maybe about 2 or 3x, or they just make their money back. Another 2 or
Right.
30% get, 25% get maybe 3 or 4x. There is very few that become an Uber or an
Right.
Airbnb or whatever.
So why would you ever then invest in a company if your assumption is that they're never going to exit?
It's no. First of all, as an investor, you expect all of them to give you 10x, 20x, 30x of your money. So if I give somebody $1 million, I have to assess that this company could potentially give me $30 million, $20 million.
Okay.
And then I give 10 of these or 25 of these, actually the number is 25, in order for me to reduce the risk. And if one of these, I am anticipating 30%, 40% will fail.
Okay.
Now, which one it is, I don't know. You try, it's
Interesting.
kind of like getting married, it's 50-60% of people get divorced, but nobody enters a marriage saying, I'm going to go screw up this marriage. It's not going to work. No, everybody does their homework. Everybody wants it to be good, but it doesn't work.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Oh my
So
gosh.
this is the game that you're trying to spread the risk. You figure out, but you look for each one of these. Do they have a compelling value proposition? Is this something relevant to the market? Is this guy coachable? Is this person, would he listen or would she listen or be a partner with the investor? Are they flexible? So all of those are important. And authenticity and honesty is also important. Remember, I'm giving you my money. I don't want to give it to a crook.
Correct.
I don't want to give it to somebody who lies to me from day one.
Right.
And I'm not giving it to a bank where I know it's insured by some place and it's safe. I'm giving it to you with a high probability of failure.
Right. Do you give seed capital or only after a company shows success?
I am the foolish one of the month.
But people appreciate that because without you, no one would ever have a second step in order to stand on. So thank you on behalf of all entrepreneurs. Thank you.
Without me, you wouldn't have an example of stupidity either. But I have found that when I'm involved, and I'm an analytical guy. The chances of success of the companies, the ones that I'm involved with, it's up by 4.3x. That means 4 times higher likelihood if I'm involved and I work and there's chemistry and it's not just the money, we're working together. So usually I'm the guy that says, yeah, I would invest in a man and a laptop if I really like the guy and I like the person and I like her with her ideas or whatever. I would do that, but I have to be close.
Right. So what would you attribute that success to? In other words, clearly you're not necessarily an expert in everyone's industry. So why do you think that for the companies that you're involved with, why do they show so much more success? What is it about you that's able to do that for them?
I think it's bringing experience in a lot of different areas, from sales and marketing to product development to you name it. That when things go astray, in the wrong direction, I'll say, I've been on this road. This is not the right road. So I may have helped them avoid certain roads, if you would. Okay. Or when we see something, say, hey, if you negotiate this way, if you do this way, this would, and some of those skills are transferable. right?
Right.
So that I think the key thing in those success factors, it's not just me, it's the entrepreneur as well. If the entrepreneur is willing to get into a constructive building, and he will take, and I have a few entrepreneurs. One of them started a 3D printing company, and when I saw him, he had a very little sales, but he took my first book. I didn't know him. He was a student at USC at that point and had just started
Yeah.
things.
Okay.
And I gave him my book as just a casual thing. And then he came back to me a month later with 30 pages of notes. Uh, 30 pages
Like,
of notes.
you are a good student. Okay, great.
But this wasn't the case. We had a 1 hour.
Right.
I teach in China every year, not this year, but so I said, hey, I'm leaving. He said, no. A month later, he said, I want to meet with you before you leave. I said, okay, this afternoon. He said, yeah, I'll come by. We met at the Starbucks, and he showed me his notes, and he says, I think we've had an addiction in here. I think we've done this. What do you think? So we agreed on 4 things for him to do. Four.
Okay. Okay.
To be honest with you, I didn't think he could do it.
Okay.
This was June. I said if he could do it by next year, he was. I came back in August. He sent me a letter. This is 2-3 months later. And he says, "Can we meet?" He had completed all those 4 things. His own
Wow.
way. He took the advice. He maneuvered it. He massaged it to situations. He
Right.
figured out what works best within that framework. I didn't do that. He did that.
That's awesome. Have you ever had any founders like fight with you about direction and and create? So how do you handle that type of conflict?
The question is, how does my wife handle that? Because what I say is, when you've invested in somebody and you've done this, you're literally pregnant. There's no other way to explain this.
Okay.
So I've had that situations. I've had situations where somebody, a friend of mine who was, for example, on a board, he called me in and he said, "This guy David only listens to you. I just can't communicate." They got into a fight, and I got on a board for no reason at all. I didn't even like the idea, but I was kind of leaving. I've had
Right.
situations where I was on the board of a company, which, by the way, eventually sold. You had to get rid of the CEO. This is another thing. Investors do not want to own your business.
Right.
It is wrong. They call them venture capitalists, venture culture, whatever they call it. But the idea is that if I'm investing in something, I don't want to own that business. If I wanted to do it, I'll go start up something myself. I don't
Right.
want to own that business. So the worst thing is for investors to want to get involved and fire a CEO. That's not their objective. That
Right.
is the absolute last resort.
Okay.
Here's the idea. I'm investing in you. So at 4 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm asleep and you're working. I don't
Right.
want to be you. I've done that before. So nobody wants to, anybody that's professional investor, again, maybe somebody who gives you some money and their intention is, not necessarily kosher. They just want to get in. They just want to,
Sure.
but professional investors do not desire to be running your business.
Interesting to know. Look, I've met with a lot of different VCs, not necessarily for my own stuff, but I have a lot of clients that I've worked with who all have received investments from a whole variety of VCs and funds and stuff. And one of the things that we've seen is that they all operate very differently. Some of them are a lot more hands-on, and a lot more into the details, and some of them are just about, well, just report back to me about how it's happening. And it's really interesting to see the level of involvement that someone takes when they invest in you, right? And what's interesting though is when we talk about recruiting investment. There's a lot of the types of investment you could recruit in order to be successful that doesn't have to be financial.
That's right.
You can recruit someone's time. You can recruit, someone's passion. You can recruit someone's expertise and experience, in your industry, right? And you should never, and one of the big things that I tell, look, I talk with a lot of, heads of companies, and I tell them, I say, don't ever underestimate a person's ability to invest in your company if it's something that, with the skills that they know how. Right. Another example is that, I work also with a whole variety of large non-for-profits, and they're always looking to raise capital. They're always looking to, build new programs. And the first question I always ask the CEO is, have you turned to your staff for support yet? Right. And not necessarily for financial support, but have you turned to them and asked them, hey, are you committed to our cause? What resources do you have access to? Before we go to the outside world, before we go to people who don't really know what we do, right? Turn to the people who are passionate enough to be part of it, day in, day out, all the time, and say, hey, what resources do you have to give? And you'd be surprised what kind of investment people can get and can thrive on that success in order to hit their next milestone of whatever it happens to be, their next achievement, right? It really makes a big difference.
I told you about this being the pilot idea, which I talk about in my book. But there's another one that I say, be an ocean. And I say you have to create your own oceanness. An ocean has certain characteristics. It's a provider. That means it provides to all entities within the ocean. It has an ecosystem that survives. It's a connector. It connects the land to the plants. It has a lot of characteristics. And what I say is be an ocean or explore your own oceanness. That doesn't necessarily impact. Microsoft may have 17 million people in this ecosystem. You and I may have a donut shop or a little sandwich shop. We have 2 people working for us, and and a bunch of customers. Not millions of customers, 20, 100 customers, but that's our ocean. The question is, how do we apply our oceanness to it? That is, how do we get people to connect with each other? How do we create this energy? And there are different kinds of energies that are waves that runs our business every day. And that help us go from one, like tropical energies that gets us from one stage to another. So creating this idea that you have to build your ocean, and it doesn't matter if it's got 2 people to it or 200,000 people.
You are so correct. You are so correct. It's true. And there's a certain level, not that everyone should be in, all the details of your business, because that's not their business, right? But there's no reason why you can't be transparent and communicate about your successes and your struggles and know who to turn to. If you have an active support base, meaning, right, you have, let's say you have a staff or you have people who love buying your product, right? Don't be afraid to turn to them and say, hey, let me ask your opinion on the following. Because you'd be surprised how many people who actually want you to, want to see you succeed will step up, right? All of your customers, all the people who buy your product, all the people who work for you, all the people who think about you, they all want you to succeed. They all want your business to be successful because they want to keep participating in it. They want to keep, exchanging the, resources with you, money for service or product. They wanted that. Yeah. So, don't ever underestimate that network that you are a part of on all sides of it.
Exactly right. But if you want people to be an active supporter, you have to be an active supporter of them. It's a two-way.
Hands down. I could not agree more. That is so actively important. Because you're right, people will respond, and this comes back to what we said before. People will respond to how you initiate activity, right? And so when you invest in people and you invest, people will invest back in you. Look, this is a conversation I have with brands all the time. It's how does your brand, whether you're an individual or a company or a multi-bajillion dollar business, right? How does your brand interact with its people? How does it look at them? Do you look at them as people, or do you look at them as just like a mull of blur that that's shelling out cash, right? A really successful brand is the brand who can help, who sees their audiences as individuals, responds and reacts to those people as individuals, as people, right? And who's able to help those people see themselves in your brand. It's not all about me all the time. It's really the focus always has to be.
They are genuine to that, to who they are. It's not that they didn't employ some public relations firm, say a branding firm, or create a logo of what our brand is, and then not deliver on it. So here's the thing. I use this in my classes all the time. I teach at USC, and I say, okay, here's the thing. Let's assume I come in one day and I have a suit and tie on and have a briefcase. The next day I come in, I have a guitar on my back, and I painted my hair green. And the next day I come in a different way with a glass with a beer in my hand, and the next day I come in, right? You don't know who I am.
Right.
You don't know who I am. So
I had a teacher like that once, by the way. I had a teacher like that once.
Yeah.
he was so weird. Okay. Anyway, sorry. Yeah.
So, but the question is that if you are a brand and you take a position of who you are, it's just like you have to build. You like your friends to be similar, and you would like to be able to trust them. So they have to always be the same. If I am this way, if I'm helpful, they want to be able to count on me, rely on me as this.
Right.
And that's how a brand is built, because it's the character of the company.
Right. 100%. I totally appreciate that. What was one of your toughest but best learning processes during your business? In other words, like what was like, we talk a lot about learning from mistakes or failures, right? Is there a particular time in your career that you really can look at and say, wow, that was a pivotal learning experience for me?
I can. So there's this idea, by the way, that I believe, and I'll give you the example, but this, I think, is over time I have built this idea that there's a term in Hindu, I believe it is, in Indian, up guru. Up guru. You know what a guru is? This is up guru.
Okay.
So an up guru.
I'll trust you on this one. I know you, but I'll trust you. Okay,
a guru is the person that you follow and you believe in, whatever you want to call it, the guru. So up guru is it means the guru that's near me. That's with me. So I believe that could be anyone. That could be in a conversation that you have with your wife, with your kids, a teller at a bank window. It could be a bumper sticker on the back of a car. It could be your teacher. It could be, if you are listening, that guru is teaching you something, then you can learn. It's not, it's how you listen, not how people tell you things. It's how you listen.
Correct.
So let me tell you the one pivotal point, and there's been many. This is one. I sold a company when I was in college. So I was pretty full of myself. But then I became an analyst in a consulting firm. And about, in those days, there was no computers. There was, we would write reports and cut and paste, and you had a typist who would type stuff. It was a complicated process. And we used to do reports for clients. At that point, I was serving clients like Motorola or IBM, Federal Reserve Bank, and those kind of big entities. So there was a guy named Jim Steinman, who was my first boss. And one night I was leaving around 7 or 8 o'clock at night, and I had written a report for a client. and his office was right when I was going to get out of the door. His office was right there, glass thing, so you could
Yeah.
see who's coming, who's going. So as I was
Right.
going, he said, Sid, come on over here. So he handed me a report that I had done, all red marks everywhere. And he said, you are a brilliant man, but you will never, ever make it as a consultant. Take this piece of plastic
Right.
and throw it at me.
Wow.
He said, you cannot write.
Okay.
Okay? So
So,
that somebody could have taken that in the wrong way. I said, he's right. I cannot
okay.
write. I need to be able to write. Now I write for Forbes. I've written 2 books. I write for London School of Economics. I write for lots of different places, foreign policy, this and that and that. And that has been a phenomenal pivotal point as a personal thing. In Because if you can't write, you can't communicate.
Right.
You're like an artist, a singer who cannot sing.
Yeah.
You know,
I hear
a
that.
guitarist without a guitar, you're useless. You cannot
Right.
voice yourself. So that was something that was completely pivotal for me.
Wow. You have a new book coming out. Right? You are not them. What is that? What's that book about? Where did it come from? How did you get to writing this?
So my first book, which was out a couple of years ago, is called The Caterpillar's Edge, and it was about the idea of caterpillar. Evolves all the time, and it turns from one thing to another. It was the idea that you have to evolve always, and it
Okay.
was more focused on bigger companies and so forth. But at my roots, I'm an entrepreneur. And over time, I started thinking, it's really the mindset of people. That's why you started with this. Why they call you the entrepreneur philosopher? Because I have so many philosophical conversations with entrepreneurs and say, hey, the way you think over here is because we. So the idea is very simple. All of us are entrepreneurs. So let's
Okay.
realize that. Where you are in the spectrum, that's a different story. On one side, we have people who are, I say, misguided. These are people who
Right.
are trying to be bamboozling people and piercing people and stealing and cheating, whatever. And they're fast talkers. That's not necessarily an entrepreneur. That's a charlatan. Then on the
Right.
other side, you have the deniers who deny that they are actually an entrepreneur. They're exchanging every day. So with that philosophy of we're all entrepreneurs, then I looked at the entrepreneurs and say, we're not them. Everybody is different. So what do I need to make myself unique? I need a philosophy. I need
Right.
my own unique philosophy. So what the book does is not a how-to. It's a whole set of ideas. Again, I talk about this idea of being the pilot. What does that mean? How do you deal with risk? The idea of ocean, the energies, and it's full with examples of my personal examples, other examples. It's also about this idea of be a dancer. Uh, be a dancer, and has to do with execution, has to
Okay.
do with timing, has to do with all that sort of stuff. Be authentic, the authentic leader, and I talk about how do you the trust needed, the courage, all of those sort of stuff, and actuating your mindfulness. It's not about sitting in a room and being mindful and aware. It's how do you take that and activate it and actuate it. So
Right.
it's a collection of ideas, and it's got poems from Rumi and statements from Plato to to you name it. And that's
Right.
why people, it's a combination of philosophy and business, because I
Okay.
believe it all starts in your mindset. And if you fix your mindset, if you have a mindset that is clear, your strategies and plans will connect nicely to your execution, to the way you market, to the way you present yourself, to the way you build a culture, to the way you succeed. So
Right.
you are not
Right.
them is it's called the authentic entrepreneur's way, which you would build, and it's different than most books because I start with the conclusion. The first chapter of the book is the conclusion. The last chapter is the beginning.
Okay.
Um, It's got a lot of nice, from people like Tim Draper, who's a well-known uh, Silicon Valley, venture capitalist, to others. The forward is written by the founder or the inventor of cell phones,
Well,
Marty Cooper. So I've got lots of good things about it. It will be out on the 26th of January.
how can someone order
It would be on
or
Amazon.
get a copy?
It would be on Amazon on the 26th. It would be out. The early, I think, availability is on 23rd.
Okay.
But it would be on Amazon, and they can get it anywhere in the world. I assume it's Amazon, and they figured that piece of it out. I think they figured that piece out. We can learn a thing or two in vaccine distribution as well from those guys.
Just a little bit.
So
Yeah.
it's called "You Are Not Them," the
Right.
authentic entrepreneur's way, and
Fabulous.
I hope you enjoy it.
Sid, thank you so much for coming on the show. I love talking with you. You have so much insight. You're clearly so excited and passionate about all the things that you're involved with, and that you're part of. It was really wonderful. How, if someone wants to get in touch with you about your book, about business, or whatever it is, how can someone find you?
My main site is called mohasseb.com, my last name.com. My email is sid@mohasseb.com. So it's hard. If you know my name, then you can figure it out. And then there are links there to my advisory, to my venture things, to my book, to also my speaking engagements. I do a lot of speaking engagements for CEO roundtables around the globe, different kind of forums, big forums, keynotes, or small ones. So
Fabulous.
I'm very available all over the place on the net. They should be able to find me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking with you here on the Executive Talk podcast. And I'm looking forward and excited to continuing this conversation with you, and for you taking the time to chat with us and all of our listeners here today. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. And I ask you and your audience to never leave change to chance.
You're on. It's a deal. Thank you so much, Sid. Have a great one. Take care. Okay. How was that? How do we do?
Hey, was it good for you?
It was awesome. I loved it.
Well, good.
I love how you put it. Your take on how to understand and appreciate entrepreneurship and leadership in such practical ways. I think it's beautiful. I have a, like, people ask me about leadership, right? About can anyone be a leader? And I give them this analogy. Is I believe that anyone can be a leader, right? Personal leadership, I believe anyone can achieve it. And the example that I give is people have something in their life where they might not realize it, but they create a sense of ownership for it, right? And so, for example, right, when I get into a car and I'm driving somewhere, I drive with purpose. I know exactly where I'm looking to go.
Exactly.
I have zero tolerance and patience for stupid drivers. I have, if you try to do something, on the road that's dangerous, that is a problem. If you're driving too slow, it annoys me. If you're driving, I know that when I get into my car and I'm driving, I have that sense of ownership of the road. I am confident. I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm aware of all my surroundings, and I'm there. The trick now, though, is to be able to understand that as an independent component of you. And you can say to yourself, hey, all of these characteristics that I experience and exhibit while doing that, it's not specific to driving. That's a mentality. It comes out when you drive, but that's mentality.
Absolutely.
So now the question becomes is how do you take that and apply it somewhere else?
So you can be a leader, but you have to be your kind of leader, because you're your kind of driver. Your driving is not just like me. Your car is not just like me. Your age is not like me. You have to be your kind of driver, your kind of leader.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, 100%.
But
100%.
you have all the, and that's what I say. I say entrepreneurship and leadership are two sides of a coin. They are twin brothers.
Okay.
Okay, they are twin brothers. If you have the talent, the entrepreneurial talent, it's inherent in all of us. You also have the inherent talent to lead. You
Yeah.
decide, I don't want to lead here, I want to lead here, because you don't have the confidence, because you're afraid, because you want to push the thing. It's just kind of like being a pilot. You decide, hey, I like to be a pilot.
Yeah, and it can be with anything, right? Whether you like to play sports, you like to ride bikes, you like to run, you like to write, it doesn't matter what you're doing. But if you understand that those capabilities exist, you have to become self-aware of those components, and then you can take them and you can apply them to other aspects of your life, and you can develop them and grow them in areas that you think you never thought possible.
Aaron, you're gonna love my book.
I'm gonna love it. I'm excited to read it.
You're gonna love my.
I'm excited to read it. I really am. I think it's going to be fabulous.
I think it's going to give you a lot of material as well. You know, a lot of one-liners in there. I can see that you're tilted that way. You know.
Look, I ran a conference a little while ago, a marketing conference. But I ran a conference, and then I had intended to plan a second one, and for a whole variety of different reasons, it never worked. And I have every intention of re-engaging with that and getting back into that next level. And when I do, I'm telling you now, you're going to be my first phone call. I'm like, Sid, I don't know if you remember this, right, or remember who I am, but yeah, we're looking for a speaker, and I want you to come join us. So I'm great.
We'll be happy to do it. We'll be happy to do it.
Awesome. Well, I'm so glad that you took the time. Thank you for chatting with me.
Great conversation. I enjoyed it. And, how late is it for you?
It's not so bad. It's still early.
It's still
only 10 o'clock. It's still early.
Time to go out.
If I wasn't in lockdown right now, that would be great.
Would be an idea. So I saw something that says, I now understand why dogs run out when the door is open.
Oh, I love that. It's so funny.
So when the doors get open, we're going to all run out.
That's it. We're all out. That's all. Awesome. Right. Sid, thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Have a great one. I'm looking forward to continuing this conversation.
And I will share that on my social media as well.
You're on. Cool.
Okay.
Have a great day. Thanks. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.